Big things in life can take a long time to achieve. A few years at university chasing that degree. A couple of years together with your partner before you marry. Several years on the sporting field chasing that championship event or title for yourself. Even waiting in line for your morning coffee. But they're all made up of moments, and it's the moments in life that really matter. That moment you get your degree after several years of study. That moment you're up on the altar and your partner says, "I do." That moment you cross the finish line first or kick that winning goal for the team. The moment you take your first sip of your coffee. These are all moments that matter, and here are mine. First moment is achieving a goal. So for me, it was my World Championship gold medal. It took me 23 years of training to get there. I started off mountain biking in 1990 as a young 13-year-old. I was second in my first ever race and I thought I'd be a world champion the next year. Took a little bit longer than that, but the moment I crossed that finish line after the team's triathlon at the World Masters Games, having known we won, was something that I'll really cherish for a long time. This next moment is buying your first house. So for me, we'd spent a few months looking at all these properties and we knew what we wanted, we knew where we wanted to be, and all those months of open homes and looking on Trade Me and having your shortlist, the moment that really brought it home, excuse the pun, the moment that really mattered was signing that contract. That really meant a lot. Next moment is finding your purpose, career or otherwise. So I guess for me, I've done a few jobs. I've been self-employed for the best part of 25 years, run my own businesses. When I stop and think about it, all of my businesses have been service-based. So my purpose, I think, is that I'm here to serve. And I just get such a buzz, pretty much, when it happens, that moment when you get tingles down the back of your neck, when you know you're making a real difference to somebody else's life. And those are the moments that matter to me. Okay, this next moment is finding someone to love. That can take a long time, I guess, for some. And there wasn't any Tinder or any apps like that around when it was my turn. And I did have a few other things I was concentrating on, but there is that moment when you know that you've found the person that's the one. That moment for me was, can't go into too much detail about it here to protect the innocent, but let's just say it involved a garden tap, climbing in through a window and losing some keys. But that moment of standing on the tap really meant a lot to me. Next moment is something from your childhood. So for me, that moment was, we were living in Los Angeles, it was 1984, and my cousin had made the Olympic cycling team for New Zealand. So the years of training for him to get there and the Olympic build-up, being in Los Angeles was such a buzz. Americans can do buzz like no one else, but the moment of that whole part of my life was actually when my cousin turned up to stay with us for a few days and he rode around the block with me and my friends. So we were on our BMXs, he was on his racing bike with the New Zealand team kit, and that started my love of cycling, and it's never left me. That was a real moment that mattered. Next moment for me is deciding on where to go for your OE. It's pretty much a Kiwi and Aussie rite of passage, really. We're stuck down here at the bottom of the world, and we can't wait to go around traveling for a few years. So for me, I ended up in Boulder, Colorado, chasing my cycling dream. So I spent several months there, packed up my bike, had a plan for racing and everything, but as what happens in life sometimes, the best laid plans never really work out. So the moment for me was turning up in Boulder after flying from Auckland to LA, flying from LA to Denver, getting into Boulder, Colorado just before midnight, and having a missed call on my phone from my accommodation provider saying that they couldn't have me anymore. So that was a bit of a moment, But, you know, got it sorted, picked myself up, went to the cafe the next morning after staying in a hostel for the night, and knew that I'd be able to figure it out. So that moment of backing myself, that I'm here now, may as well make the best of it, that moment of waking up knowing it was going to be okay, that's what mattered to me. Okay, so this next moment, asking someone to marry you. You're engaged, you're pretty sure they're the one, you might even be living together, but the actual moment you ask the question and the moment you get the answer back, which hopefully is yes, that means everything. So that moment really matters to me as well. This next moment is losing someone you love. That's part of life, isn't it, really? We're all going to experience that at some time. There's certain things that stick with me. So one thing in particular is a number, 23115. That's the amount of days my mum was alive for. But she did so much for me, as everybody's mother does, I'm sure, and so much unconditional love and support, and a big part of making me who I am today. But the moment for me around losing someone you love was the very last night I got to kiss her goodnight. Now, remember that for a long time. And those moments really do matter. Next moment, selling your first house. Generally, people are on the property ladder and you've bought a house and you've lived in it for a while and it no longer fits your needs, or you're moving up or moving down. The moment for me when we sold our first house was at auction, and there's a little bit of a buzz, a little bit of excitement around it all. There's been the build-up of the open homes and things like that, and you've been 3 or 4 weeks sort of on the market and keeping your house tidy, and a little bit of stress creeps in. But that moment the auctioneer counts it down and hits his hammer with sold, it's all worth it. That moment really matters to me. This next moment, the birth of your first child. We're lucky enough to have 2 healthy children, and they both matter, love them equally, but there is something about witnessing the birth of your first child. And for me, it was being involved, being able to cut the umbilical cord, which was a little bit ropier than I thought. And then there was actually a little bit of panic that crept in. So the nurse asked me to hurry up, please. And I'd noticed they'd wheeled in this sort of machine with some lights, and our boy wasn't making any noise. And there was a little bit of a concern in the room. My wife didn't notice this at the time. She was a little bit busy doing other things, which is good. So then they took Alex off me and placed him on this little table with the lights. And after a few moments, it seemed like a long time, he gave out this big cough and gurgle and a cry. And that moment, because I guess you've seen it in the movies or whatever, that moment of hearing him cry for the first time, that was, my heart grew, and that moment really mattered to me. The next moment is getting married. I was a little bit on the fence about getting married, to be honest. You know, we were together, we loved each other, we had a life together, and I didn't really put too much stock into it. But when you go through the process and you commit to somebody in front of your friends and family, and you've said your vows, and that moment when your partner's gazing back into your eyes and you just know you're doing the right thing, that little moment when you're just sharing time with each other in front of everybody, it means so much. So that moment there of sharing your commitment in front of all your friends and family, just as you've said your vows, means a lot to me. Those are some moments from my life. We've shared 11 moments that moved me. And as we know, we can get bogged down in life sometimes, and it can feel like a little bit of a never-ending tunnel, but there's definitely light at the end of each tunnel, and you just keep going with what's important to you, because you'll stumble across those moments. And like myself, I really do hope you've had a lot of moments in your life that have moved you. And that's what I just wanted to share with you guys, is the moments that move you, the moments that make life worthwhile. And you can cherish those forever and hold on to them. And it's a big part of what makes life life, and it's a big part about what makes us us. So I've really enjoyed sharing these moments with you, and I hope you have moments that move you as well.